what can go wrong is that the pastry is shrinking when you try to bake your pastry, which means you put your pastry in the mold that way, you put your filling inside, and all of a sudden the pastry is that size and the filling runs all over the sides. It's a very common thing to happen. What has happened is most likely that the pastry has been overmixed, or that the pastry was mixed correctly, but the student or the pastry cook has been playing around with the pastry, and the pastry becomes very tough. And because the pastry is tough, because the gluten has developed and absorbed the moisture, it has become very elastic. And all of a sudden, you put that in the oven, and as soon as the fat gets soaked, it shrinks into a much smaller version of what we started with, which means that our product would be spoiled and you could not sell it. You do that too often in a cake shop, you will have nothing to sell to your customers. So when you make pastry, very important to remember the mixing procedure. You make sure that the fat and the flour is correctly mixed before you add the moisture. Make sure that when you add the moisture that you barely mix it so it holds together. It doesn't need anything more than that. Mixing doesn't make it better. Okay? So it's very important. If you make a mistake choosing the flour, you take baker's flour instead of plain flour. This will make a little bit of a difference, but not critical as to spoil the whole product. Mainly, if you take the wrong flour, you will increase the cost of your product because the baker's flour is a little bit more expensive, and if it starts shrinking, it shrinks a lot more than plain flour. So, for short crust pastry, choice of flour is critical, and the mixing time is critical. Oh my God. Tried to headbutt it straight here, didn't work. The other thing was puff pastry. Puff pastry, yet again, very simple recipe. Flour, fat, water, and salt. That's all there is in it. The thing is, mixing is critical again. If you overmix it, it's very difficult to give the folds. If it's difficult to give the folds, you will not give the folds properly, and your pastry will be spoiled in that way because it will not, the layers that you try to create to make it puff and to make it flaky will not happen. Therefore, it is very important that the mixing procedure is followed correctly, but ever more the number of folds that you are going to give. Most of the pastry you give between 4 and 5 simple folds. You all remember the folds? A simple fold is when you have 1, 2, 3, and you fold it together, and you give one more, roll it out, give more folds, and so on. These are the simple fold. Does anyone remember what the book folds are? The book folds is that you have 4 layers. Okay, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of pastries. Obviously, because you have 4 folds, if you multiply by 4, you would have 16 extra folds by just using double folds. So you have to be aware that if you use double folds, that you use a lot less. For example, if you use 5 simple folds here you would use 1 simple and 2 folds. Okay, to make the equivalent. We didn't make book folds in the classroom because the amount of pastry that we had was too small. hook folds are mainly used when you make big amounts of pastry. Otherwise, it is not really beneficial. What happens if